Board of Selectmen here, Wednesday, April 24th, 2019 at 6:30. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome back, everybody. Any public comments at this time? Yes, sir. Come on up and identify yourself for the record.
I'm Craig Toohey, taxpayer from 31 Central Street in Baldwin.
Yes, Mr. Toohey.
So I was at your last meeting, the public hearing, 2 weeks ago. That involved my son's death after drinking at the Thirsty Turtle. And I didn't realize, although I'm pretty familiar with town meeting, I didn't realize I could speak at that meeting. And by the time I realized I could speak, we were closing discussion. So I want to tell you my thoughts about the process last week. I've watched that meeting probably a dozen times and went through it. And tonight I'm here representing my family and the community. And the first reason I'm here is for the family of four coming from soccer practice that gets hit that potentially gets hit for the next missile coming out of that establishment, okay? I'm gonna start on the first hearing, the night of the first hearing, which I've watched numerous times. And Mr. Chairman, this was from you, and I quote, "This is one of our businesses in town, and we need to get it right," okay? You didn't mention getting it right for the business 60 yards up the street called Lee's Hot Dog Stand, whose proprietor was killed in an accident after leaving the Thirsty Turtle. That's disgraceful. Or is beer more important in this community than hot dogs? When my son got killed, that was the second fatality leaving that establishment in less than 6 months. So they didn't learn much the first time. There have been numerous accidents when people have been seriously hurt, not to mention OUIs, etc. The Templeton police put together a good investigation, a lot of witness statements that gave a true picture of what happened that night. Instead, this board, and particularly the chairman, let a defendant's high-priced lawyer run the meeting 2 weeks ago and sanitize his client's responsibility that night. Nobody from this board challenged him on statements he made when you had investigative and statements in front of you that said the exact opposite. You allowed him to sanitize the report time and time again. And again, you basically allowed him to run the meeting and tell the story the way he wanted it. Do you know why? Because it was entered into public record. He knew what he was doing. He was pulling the wool over your eyes. Mr. Town Administrator, your choice of words 2 weeks ago was particularly insulting. You said numerous times you didn't want to burden the Thirsty Turtle. Really? Do you have any children? Do you know the horror of losing an only child? Do you have any children? You're wondering about a burden? You insulted his mother, the community, and myself for your callous disregard to my son's death. So you were worried about burdening the turtle financially? First of all the people that they have there have been over-serving, that they've been over-serving when all these incidents have happened. They're over-serving it for profits over public safety. Second of all, you're worried about burdening them financially for closing them for a couple of days? Do you want to know how much calling hours for 1,200 people and a funeral for 450 people costs? Or how about writing more wills and disposing of estates with lawyers' bills? Then we have the cost of replacing my son forever at Lee's Hot Dog Stand, and you're worried about burdening the turtle for a couple of nights closing? It's disgraceful. I wonder how much of that burden that is emotionally and financially. So remember, when a liquor establishment consistently overserves patrons, they're doing it to boost profits. They're not doing it because they're making a mistake. They're trying to make money. And just because someone is tip certified, there was a lot of talk about tip certification from Mike Wilcox, his attorney. Like the bartender that night, it doesn't mean they're complying with the law. They just took a test. The more they sell, the more they make. The drunker the patrons, the higher the tips. So it's all well and good to say everybody needs to be tip certified, but they need to do their job. Mr. Town Manager, 4 times 2 weeks ago, you said that by negotiating a lesser penalty, that you and the board was saving the town potential litigation costs. As a taxpayer, I want you to remind you of that family of 4, the soccer family. When a couple people get killed, they're gonna sue the town now because you chose a lighter punishment over a stricter enforcement of the liquor laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And it's said by him 4 times in a public meeting, on tape. Penny wise and pound foolish. You voted 2-night suspension on sufficient facts that led to a fatality. That's the type of suspension for somebody who's charged with serving a minor or being open a little late at the end of the night past their posted hours. You chose that punishment for a fatality. You have insulted the Templeton Police Department on the good work they did on this. You put business interests ahead of public safety. That's outrageous. The Templeton Police are public servants who put their life on the line. They never know who they're going to encounter when they're walking up to a car late at night or responding to a domestic dispute. And when they get called to a traffic accident scene with the fire department, like they did the nights of my son's accident under mutual aid, and thank you very much to the town for that, they carry that scene and the way the victims look with them forever. That's what our public servants do. Whether it's a fatality or people seriously hurt, they deserve a Board of Selectmen that supports them and not one that runs and hides when a high-priced lawyer threatens them with litigation. I want to thank Mr. Morrison and Mrs. Richards because both of you were in support of a stronger penalty that night, and you got talked down, okay? And Mrs. Haley was on the fence, and I want to thank you for that. And I think that you understood the gravity of the situation. For the future, I think this board must make sure that the agreement that he pleads guilty to sufficient facts in this case, and that the Templeton Police investigation report is part of the hearing and agreement so that the next time that this happens with this establishment, you have those things to hold them accountable. Finally, at the end of the meeting 2 weeks ago, you did not take a vote to end the hearing. You can hear Mr. Morrison asking the chairperson that he didn't think that you took the vote properly. According to town meeting law, you're supposed to vote to exit a hearing. So all of last week's selectmen, according to my lawyer and other people I've consulted, all of last 2 weeks ago's selectmen meeting is part of that hearing because you never closed it properly. It's still open. It's still open right now. So you might want to discuss some of the things I brought up before you close it. You don't have to. And I think you need to take a vote to close the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, sir. Sorry for your loss.
I appreciate you sharing your comments with us.
Our deepest condolences on your loss.
And we have no meeting minutes? No executive session minutes? Any appointments and introductions, Mr. Tenzini?
We have an introduction to be made by Bob.
Bob?
Mr. Chairman, Board, I'd like to exhibit Smith as a newest member of the Buildings and Grounds, and we're working with Michelle full-time year-round.
Okay, great.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Yep, welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
What was your name again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear your name.
I'm sorry,
I didn't hear your name.
Exhibit Smith.
Exhibit Smith.
Okay, welcome aboard. Thank you.
Thanks.
And you said building and grounds?
Yes.
That is all for appointments and introductions?
That's all we have for you this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Development Services Quarterly Report? How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Couple more weeks.
All right, so just to give you some of the highlights, you have the report. As you know, the Baldwinville Elementary School Reuse Committee fulfilled their charge and presented to you, and that's moving forward. Green Communities Grant, the request for proposals is currently going out for the energy audits for certain buildings with the town.
Good.
That's in the hands of MRPC Representative Karen Chapman. Building Department, been very busy. We have, in the last 3 months, there were 3 new residential builds, 1 on Lord Road, 2 on Hubbardston. Multiple wiring permits, multiple plumbing permits, somewhere in the area of 24 permits for renovations. The school project and the police station project, all the inspections are up to date at this time for all of our inspectors. We'll be moving on to kitchen pretty soon. The Ag Commission had an article for the annual town meeting. They have withdrawn it. The reason they withdrew the article is because they're already covered. They were grandfathered. They were created before the regulations went in, so everything is up to date.
Okay, good.
Zoning Board granted a variance on South Road for reduced frontage for a new build. They heard a request for a special permit for USA Auto Recycling. The owner was out of town at that point in time and didn't come, so the hearing was closed and he has to start over.
Okay.
Planning completed the hearing process for 136 Patriots Road, which is Patriots Roast Beef, Lewindy's LLC. You should start seeing demolition happening of the old building at 136 this week. And Conservation has been extremely busy with site walks for new builds and renovations. They're doing very well. And the Board of Health has been very busy too. We're still doing community septic loans. We're still doing the abandoned housing initiative. We've gotten 2 more houses completely done, one on 17 Gray Road, and we're working on one on Shore Drive now. They continue to work with the emergency dispensing drills through the state, Region 2. We're up to date on all of that. And that's about the highlights I have for you tonight.
Fantastic, great job.
Thank you.
Good work.
Are we gonna, if I may?
Yep.
Are we gonna have bulky waste days again, or hazardous waste days, things like that again this?
We are definitely
Spring,
going to
summer?
be hosting bulky waste days. We're a little wet down there still. We've had a lot of rain. I've spoken with Bob, and he's gonna help me out with some mowing down there, and we'll get that up and running. We're still using the Winchendon Transfer Station, so if anybody has anything, they can call the Board of Health, we'll give them the number. Bulky items can be getting right up there anytime.
Okay.
Hazardous Waste Day is another item that we'd like to do. It's cost prohibitive at the moment.
Mhm.
We're working on it, hoping to jump on and do a regional,
Oh, good.
Mhm.
so.
Anything else?
I just had a quick question. Can you elaborate a little bit on the request for a variance from 37 Myrtle Street?
37 Myrtle Street they'll actually be coming before you. It's a trailer, so they were looking for a little more space, a bigger trailer. The zoning board agreed to, and I'm sorry, you might have to check in with me a little bit later for
Sure.
more information.
Okay.
But it was based on the size of the trailer.
So obviously the trailer that was there is being removed, the new trailer was coming in, and it's obviously because the trailer that was there, the manufacturer, I think it was like a 1960s trailer or something, they don't make that manufacturing style trailer anymore. So all the new trailers are at least, I think, a foot and bigger and a foot wider or whatever. But it fit on the pad, I was told, that was the impression I was under.
Well, the problem was it was already a non-conforming lot, so they're looking
Right.
to buy like a 1980-something trailer to replace it.
Oh, I see.
So
So that'll be coming in front of us?
it will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And just to elaborate on, you said Patriots Road?
Patriots Road, the demolition permit's been signed, so that building should be coming
The
down.
house there?
The asbestos has been all done, yep,
Okay. There,
The one that's about to fall down in a strong wind, that one?
yes.
well, you are with this trash, like human trash?
All of
in the
it's
back?
going.
Okay, all right, because there's been a increase of rodents, I guess.
Activity?
Activity, I think that was the word, activity, yes.
It'll be all gone this week.
Okay, fantastic, great, good news.
Great.
Good news, thank you so much.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Finance team quarterly report?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you guys.
I'm glad you know. First of all, Kelly apologizes for not being able to attend this evening as she is out on medical leave. She's doing well on her way, and she hopes to be back soon, so she just wanted to let you know that's why she's not here.
Great.
Nicole's been stepping up, working in the office full-time and doing a great job filling in, so
Good.
just kind of wanted to let you know that. So I get to present her report. You do have the report with you. The major rollout this year for them was the payroll system coming online. There are 5 tablets up and running throughout the town with both employees and department heads working on them, and each week brings a better ease of using the system with it. There were a lot of problems the first few weeks going out. If you look at the information she sent you, there is a letter from the company apologizing from Paychex for the errors and not keeping up with everything, but they've had good discussions with them, so payroll seems to be working really well now with them. Nicole's worked with the benefit providers in town, and right now we're coming into open enrollment in April and May, and we have the providers coming in to sit down and meet with any employees that want to change any of their insurances or anything to do with that. So that'll be done in April and May. She did attach the budget versus actuals for expenses and also the revenues. Just as a highlight for your expenditure trends, there's a few departments, I won't go over them, but you see them listed there. Most of them, anybody that's gone over the 75% budget for the year is because they've done like one-time costs for the year and they've either submitted it through, so they're like at 100% instead of 75%. So if you have any questions in particular with anybody's, you know, she can, if you send an email out to them, Nicole or her could probably get back to you on those. Worcester County Retirement was also submitted for a one-payment shot, so that gave us a discount rate for Worcester County Retirement. That's why that went out early this year. Also, she said the formula grant for senior services is spent out, and we get the funds for the year, so this account shows a negative until those funds come in, and she's hoping to get those by the end of April. And then there was just an issue with Chapter 90 monies. They weren't sure who was supposed to submit what to get reimbursement, so They did talk to the state, and right now they're just waiting on a reimbursement of over $104,000. That should be coming in the end of April, beginning of May. As far as revenue trends, she said the general revenue funds right now are right on target, 75% of the budget. So revenues are looking good for the town.
Okay, can we go back to the Chapter 90?
Yep.
Carter, who submits the request for the reimbursement for the Chapter 90? Is it the,
It starts in highway, and then it goes to accounting and comes to our offices.
okay,
And I think that in the short staff period, Pam was just not completely clear on everything that she needed to do, but it appeared, and Bob went down and met with Daryl. I had some lengthy conversations with Daryl down in Northampton, so I think we've got everything on track at this point.
okay, super. Thank you.
Okay. Which brings me to my report. The third quarter tax bills went out on time this year. This year, Collector and Treasurer's Office and our office combined the third and fourth quarter tax bills. The first ones were due February 1st. And we just want to remind residents that the fourth quarter tax bills are out there. They went out with your January mailings, and those tax bills are due May 1st. Also, this quarter, we had 11 new constructions that got occupancies on, so I was able to do supplemental bills on those, which will bring in another $22,000 in revenue into the town. This year, for abatement applications, people having questions on their assessments or values or anything like that, I received 8 in my office, and my board reviewed them and approved 4 for a total of $1,200 and denied 4 abatement applications. Also, this year, we did over 202 exemptions for people, which was a total of over $104,000 that came off our overlay, that came off of their real estate taxes. In January, it also brought in the major motor vehicle commitment for the town this year. Over 8,000 bills went out to residents totaling $1,004,000. So that's additional revenue coming into the town for excise. Mapping changes in my office were done for anybody that filed plans last year or any boundary disputes or anything new like that. So everything's been updated in my office, and in February into March, I sent everything to our online mapping company. They produce new maps for the town. I do have them in the office, and everything up on the Cartographics website is up and current too with any changes to parcels. I've been busy since the beginning of January. We're in a revaluation for 2020, so I've had Vision in and out of my office and the Department of Revenue in and out of the office. So we've been doing a lot. We've done a lot of site visits and just a lot of data entry going into the computer systems. Also, we're catching up from winter time with building permits that were pulled through the winter. So my guys and myself have been going out and doing that so we can get that in for our new growth. And at the end of March, I did attend a MAO conference, which helps to give me more continuing education credits towards my reaccreditation, which is in 2 years. Other than that, a current question that usually comes around town this time of year is what a dollar raises on our tax rate. So right now, according to our tax rate base, a dollar will raise $658,272,000. Second question usually in the office is if the town's looking for an override, which I know there's a ballot question going on for like $980,000. If that was to pass, that would roughly bring a $1.50 increase to the tax rate. And that's just not including anything else that's coming up down the line. Also, people are asking what the values were in town and how they increased. My average single-family home went up from $196,000 to $209,000 in fiscal 19, which is a 6% increase. And based on sales right now, you'll probably see another increase of your property values also going up again this year because people are buying for asking or above asking prices.
Is that all homes or just colonials?
No, that's all homes.
I thought it was just capes.
Yeah, see, and I thought it was just ranches, you know?
No, this is,
Yeah, so just a heads up, because those are the questions people are coming in and asking us right now, so. Other than that, I don't know if you have any questions?
you have anything done?
I love the title, Fun Facts.
I know, huh? Gotta make light of something, Doug.
Yeah, anything?
No, I don't have any.
Nope, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks.
Moving on to the treasurer.
So like she said, the excise commitments went out. We did mail over 8,000 bills. That's a lot of mail to process. They are available online for people to pay, but we do get a majority of the people walking in or mailing them in. I attended the Worcester Regional Retirement Meeting to get our figure for the assessment for the year that we did pay, get paid early. Erin's working on the unclaimed property, trying to get those tailings cleaned up. That's going pretty good. She's trying to keep a handle on that so it doesn't get out of hand again. We mailed out the excise bills. That was in January. Those are due in February, so that's when all those payments were coming in, and I was on vacation at the end of February. Demands went out on those. That, again, was quite a few of those going out with the 8,000 bills. Quite a few of them ended up going to demand. And we had 41 properties with unpaid taxes a few from 17 that were left over in 2018. So those were advertised in the newspaper for tax taking. And anything that doesn't get taken care of will move to, a lien will go on.
Okay, Doug, you have anything?
I do not know.
You have anything?
I do not.
And obviously, the 41 properties that we're talking about, they've been notified, I'm sure, by mail and.
Quite a few times.
Okay. Okay. Great. Can we go back, the tablets, you said there's 5 tablets now?
Yes.
Okay, and different locations, I'm assuming, right, Carter?
Yeah, I'd have to,
One's here.
Senior
Yeah.
Center, Public Works, Sewer, Town Hall, and Library.
Library.
Okay, and obviously, the funds for the tablets came out of the IT fund, I guess?
I'd have to double check. Sewer paid for theirs, and I think IT paid for the balance. I'd
Okay.
have to double check.
Okay,
We'll get you that answer.
thank you so much, sir. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
As always, Mr. Chairman, if the board has any questions over the next week or 10 days, if you can just get them to us, we'll get together with the department head and get you the appropriate answer.
Excellent. Public safety quarterly report? Chief, good to see you.
Evening, how are you?
Oh, just great.
It's great.
Yeah.
Chief Dickey couldn't be here tonight, so I'm gonna read his report.
Okay.
So for the third quarter, they saw increased emergency calls for the department. They handled 230 emergency calls. The breakdown is in front of you, EMS 178,
Mhm.
motor vehicle accidents 18, commercial fires 9, residential fire alarms 3, mutual aid 6, emergency mutual aid 2, car fires 1, chimney fires 4, brush fires 2, hazmat 2, commercial dumpster 1, pellet stove fires 1, general fire service 3. The crews completed 46 residential inspections while I worked with the building commissioner on multiple plan reviews. Firefighter Sodoni, I believe, began the fire academy in Stowe on March 3rd with completion scheduled for June 27th. Their last full-time firefighter, Lieutenant Dan Dean, who was a part-time and went full-time. He was hired on February 25th, 2019. He comes fully certified as a firefighter paramedic, so he will not have to go to the fire academy. And construction on the new fire engine continues and will be delivered on expected time. Let's see, PD. So, more of the same at the police department. Weather caused delays with certain aspects of the building construction, which has resulted with the move-in date being pushed back to sometime in late May and early June. Officer Matarosian, as you may recall, started the academy in October of last year, November, and he just graduated on April 12th. Started his first shift back on April 16th. Department has been experiencing higher than normal mechanical issues with our cruiser fleet, which has prompted a serious conversation in switching from the Ford to another manufacturer. The department has planned in place to move the existing radio antenna on Ladder Hill to the top of the tower. We would hope that this would improve radio communications and reduce the interference. All part-time officers are in the process of completing their required 40 hours of mandatory training as required by the state. You will see a breakdown of our activity. I put the second quarter in first for you and the third afterwards. ACO calls went down considerably to 73. I would say that's because we have some ACOs that are actually responding to calls now, so they don't have to call as many times. Arrests went up by 1. Assists other agencies went up by 4. Investigations, incidents went down. Restraining orders, you can see, went up substantially. Parking tickets went up. Motor vehicle citations went up. That's due to the changing weather. Accidents went down, also due to changing weather. Firearms and LTCs went down by 29. You'll see police calls for service went up by 132. And the total calls for dispatch went up by almost 374, 76.
Large increases
That's 90 days, right?
Yes.
in 90 days.
In 90 days.
Is that average?
Yeah, it is. We're coming out of the winter,
Okay,
cabin fever, and there's more calls.
okay.
Um,
Cabin fever.
Kind of surprised with this number going down on firearms and license to carry licenses, because I have been absolutely swamped with my appointments. The state's receiving over 2,000 applicants a week. We're backed up to almost 3 months turnaround for our license to carry now. So we've been really busy. Any questions?
With that backup of 3 months, how does it affect the license holder? Does the old license still carry through till the new license comes into play?
So what I've experienced with it is that the state is processing the license on the same time frame. So you're getting approved when you should be, okay? The holdup is gonna be is that your hard copy is not being delivered on time. So you will not be able to go buy a new gun because you will not have your PIN number or your new identification. But you're still legal, because if they pull it up, it's gonna show approved.
I see. Okay. That's good for the people to know. Great. Well, thank you so much. Doug, you have anything?
No.
You have anything? Great job, Chief.
Thank you.
Emergency management.
Yes.
Worked quite a bit during this quarter on calls to and from Eric Arnold and at FEMA and Carter and Adam concerning the reimbursement of the March snowstorm last year. And at this time, it looks like we're gonna be getting $29,271.80 back.
Good.
As a reimbursement. Every time you turn around, though, you fill out one form and it brings about 4 others, so. It looks like our closeout meeting, though, is supposed to be coming next week on the 1st. So I'm thinking it's coming to an end, and we might see the money pretty soon. We coordinated with Board of Health and Mike Dixon to have CERT assistance at the Board of Health drill at the middle school. And I also coordinated with Steve Castle and Mike Dixon to meet, because I guess they want to put a rack of equipment for broadcasting up in the emergency management office. So they went up there to see where they could place it. Set up and started using the new town email system during this quarter. Worked on the emergency management budget with Adam. I monitor the weather every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, and sent out notices to all of you as needed, which wasn't as bad this year. Reviewed correspondence from Carter concerning the Sody Bridge and possible grants.
Where were you monitoring that from?
Sunny
I'm
Florida.
just curious, I'm just curious.
And there was shuffleboard tournaments in between
Understood,
each one
sir.
of these items
Understood.
I'm doing too.
Thank you for monitoring our weather from down in Florida, I appreciate that.
It was a tough thing, but I had to do it. But anyway, I looked over the correspondence from Carter concerning Stody Bridge and possible grants for that, and I guess it's gonna be an ongoing thing. And I received that notification about the bridge in Otter River, Siemens paper.
Yep.
Completed a grant, filled out the application, and sent it in for the 2018 Citizen Corps Program Grant for $2,500 for the CERT team. I haven't heard back on that one yet. Completed our annual report, and we had an email conversation going back and forth with Carter over emergency management vehicle needs. And hopefully he's come up with something that's workable. We'll find out later. And I received a revised emergency action plan from Gardner's Wright Reservoir Dam, which would affect our town. So it's just a notification and things they've made changes to, that's all. And it'll go into our file. And that's it.
Great,
All from Florida.
fantastic. Do you have anything for emergency management? Do you have anything for emergency management?
I don't.
The heating's working well over there?
Yes.
Okay. Did you come up with a plan, or do you have a plan concerning the dynamite in town?
No.
Have you come up with any type of plan moving forward with the police department as far as coming up with a plan and a stabilization plan, since we have that here in town, and I think most people don't even know that?
We could do that.
I'm just
It's
thinking
not,
something,
it's,
it's
there is
contained.
no detailed plan
Okay,
in our emergency plans for the town. It mentions it, but it does not go into any details.
yeah, I think I read that with you. Maybe that's, might be something to look into. I mean, not that I don't think there should be any type of catastrophic accident, but I mean, if there ever was, I mean, there should be a plan in place that we can all function with.
The fire department might actually have a lot more than we have.
Very true,
Quite honest.
very true. Maybe something you gotta get with the fire chief.
Yep.
But great job, I appreciate it. All from Florida, I love it. Thank you so much for coming in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Templeton Farmers Market.
Lori's representing that issue tonight.
Oh, she is. Great,
Jackie was going to try and be here. She had another meeting that she had to be at.
okay.
So I don't have my paperwork with me, but you have it in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
They'd like to start in June using the property that is immediately adjacent to the library, which is town-owned. So if you're facing the library, it's the lot to the right. It's the perfect spot to host something like this. It would be every Thursday from 4 to 7, hoping that people getting out of work would be able to utilize and maybe pick up some fresh vegetables, flowers, meats,
Okay,
honey, eggs, the whole 9 yards. Jackie's been working very hard with her committee to contact local vendors to get them to participate.
That would have been my question. Are
Hi,
they
Jackie.
local vendors that we will be?
come on in.
Yay!
We're talking about you right now. We're
So we'll be encouraging
on up.
local
Come on up.
vendors?
Yes.
talking about your,
No,
Madam Directorate.
fine.
So we're talking about the farmer's market, so if you give us some insight. We got the dates.
Okay.
Thursday, starting June 6th, continuing every Thursday evening from 4 to 7 through October 3rd.
Right.
Okay.
We got a lot of input. We've had 2 meetings. I've networked with a couple of different farmers markets locally that are really successful.
Mhm.
The folks that came to our first meeting, we had over a dozen people there, and they really helped to tighten that up so that it worked for the
Okay.
growers, for the
Right.
town.
How does that work with the insurance, Carter?
They are sponsored by the town, so our insurance covers that.
Okay,
We will get indemnification agreements from each participant.
okay. And the farmer market also includes, I would assume, WIC assistance as well?
Yes, I'm taking a webinar next week from the Department of Agriculture that will certify us to
Okay.
accept WIC, the farmer's market coupons.
Right.
And will be listed in a directory for the state of farmers markets, which will draw vendors and people,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Now, Gardner also does a farmer's market as well. I think they do it on a different day.
They do, and I think it's in the morning, isn't it?
It
Or
is
it's
in the
earlier in the
morning.
day.
A Saturday morning or something, or
It's actually a weekday on Monument Square.
right,
It's much reduced from what it used to be.
okay, okay. I just did want it to conflict on the same day potentially.
Yeah, Laurie gave me a really great list of most of the markets in the
Mhm.
general area, so we've tried to, that's why we picked the night and time we did, to
Good.
not conflict.
No, great. Excellent. Do you have any questions?
No, I think it's a great idea. Long overdue.
Hoping it really
Takes
takes
off.
off.
I think it's a great idea myself. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Great. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I move to approve the use of the town property adjacent to the library for the Templeton Farmers Market on the Thursday evenings beginning June 6, 2019 through October 3rd, 2019, to be held from 4 to 7 p.m. with setup at 3 p.m. and cleanup until 8 p.m.
Okay, I have a motion. I have a second?
Second?
I have a motion, and a second. Any other discussion concerning the farmer's market?
Just had one quick, so you're
Yes.
reaching out to the local farmers
We
that would
have,
like to set up? there?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
we got a great.
So they're not coming
list.
from 40 miles away to set up on our common?
No, I mean, we may have people, I just sent out a packet to a couple of growers in Barry, so.
So not
because-
too far out?
No, not too far at all, no, but primarily we really targeted Templeton. That was,
Great.
the first meeting we had was all Templeton people.
Excellent. Okay, any other discussion? I see none. Julie?
Yes,
Doug?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I
Thanks,
can't wait to
Lori.
be there. The IMA with Phillipston regarding dispatch. Who's handling that, you, Carter, or the chief?
Chief, you wanna come up?
Chief? Let's hope this isn't bad news. I don't like bad news.
Well, as you know, we've had, for what, how many years now, Chief?
Many years.
And it had expired, it really didn't meet our needs anymore. This agreement provides a clear definition of what costs they must share in, a clear formula on a percentage basis. There's a rolling method of calculating it, and at their request, and understandable, there's a more fixed formula for sharing the grant side, the capital grant side of the program. And I think it puts to rest for the foreseeable future the question as to how long they would stay with us. Chief's got a little more math to do around budget time.
Yeah.
But I think it really does a better job at laying out all the particulars of what our relationship's gonna be. The chief would have to answer any questions on the actual service itself.
Okay. Anybody have anything for the chief?
And they're running, Chief, what, around 15% of the calls, roughly? It sounded about right. 12% now.
What do you think, what's the average call volume for a Phillipston typically? 2,000 a year, 3,000?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
And obviously you went through this contract,
Yes.
and do you have any issues with it?
No, it was pretty much just putting in writing what we had in place before. They wanted meetings, and, regular meetings, which we had before. but it wasn't written down anywhere, so now
So
it's actually.
you're meeting with like the
We have
police
quarterly
chief
meetings
and the fire chief?
with everybody involved,
Okay.
police, fire chief, emergency management, town administrators are involved. The chief of the town of Templeton oversees the meeting. There's input from everybody and a vote on how things go.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good for both towns, so.
Okay. As far as like ongoing maintenance, I mean, I really didn't see much, if there was like a catastrophic failure. I mean, since we're the primary dispatch, I mean, are they held to any responsibility of cost repairs?
So,
'Cause I didn't read any of that.
we are
in here.
responsible for our equipment.
Mhm.
When we wrote the grant in 2010, which got the town of Phillipston all their new radios, it was pretty much understood that they bore the burden of repairing that going forward.
Mhm.
However, now that we have an understanding of some of the shared grant money, they can put in a request to have some of their equipment repaired with that share of the money, if they choose so.
So like their repeaters in Phillipston, they have to repair themselves, or is that part of us?
No, that's on them.
Okay,
But if they choose to ask us, hey, we need this repaired, do you think that would be possible? We'd bring it to the table at one of the meetings and
Mhm.
go from there.
okay. Okay. Anybody else have anything for the chief? Obviously, Mr. Harrington looked at this.
Yes, the chief and I and town council prepared a draft after a discussion with Phillipston as to what their desires were.
Mm-hmm.
Tom then signed off on it. It went to their council, who has reviewed it and approved it. He hasn't signed yet. Tom Harrington has now signed, but we would ask you all to sign tonight, to move to approve it and to sign.
Mm-hmm.
If that's agreeable, then it goes over to Phillipston, where it would be on their agenda next Wednesday, I believe.
Okay, anything else for the chief?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say that it's nice to see some of these agreements that for so many years have not been in writing and have not been in somebody's books. We're cleaning that up. I think that's very impressive. So I thought the agreement looked great. I mean, I'm just learning about that stuff, but I think it looks great, and I think it's great that we're cleaning up the books and there's something in writing, especially with something to this degree, you know what I mean? I can't believe it was just a word of mouth thing for the longest time, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's not in writing, it doesn't happen. And you're happy with it?
Yes,
You support it.
Okay.
yes.
Excellent. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the intermunicipal agreement with Phillipston for the provision of public safety communications and dispatch as presented to this board.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
A motion is second. Any other discussion concerning the intermunicipal agreement? Yes, Mr. Bennett?
I didn't see any dollar amount figure in the agreement. So with regarding to the town's financial management policies and stuff,
Yes? What's your,
the Board of Selectmen, consideration, consultation with the advisory committee, will look at the revenue and expenditure forecast when undertaking budgeting duties, making decisions on long-term contracts and financial commitments.
Mhm.
But I don't see a dollar figure in here. How does that, I mean, how much is it gonna cost Templeton and how much is it gonna cost Phillipston? I mean, what are we gonna receive from Phillipston? I don't even see an estimated dollar figure. It's like, well, it's gonna be a percentage, but
Mhm.
that affects how much Templeton has to put up for that, considering we're carrying all the burden of the retirement,
Yep.
health insurance, the employees'
What's the state
labor,
retirement?
all, you know, the bulk of
Yep.
the building, you know,
Maintenance?
all of the costs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no financial figure in here.
Okay.
and it's just how you make a budget decision, like, police dispatch budget, that's a good figure. Is that gonna cover it? Is it beneficial to Templeton? I mean, are we carrying most of the burden and getting little in return?
As I asked the chief,
You know, to carry
most of
it.
those questions already.
Specifically with regards to, Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 4A, that covers intermunicipal agreements.
Yes.
And it shall establish a maximum financial liability of the parties. My concern, and I'm speaking as a resident, although I am a member of the advisory committee, there's no dollar figure here. It's kinda hard for voters, they go to town meeting and say, well, you know, Phillipston is getting the same dispatch service that we are, but what are they paying?
Well, I don't think,
What are we getting for it?
I would have
dollar-wise?
to go back and look at the law, Jeff, but I'm pretty sure that the figure wouldn't go into an IMA. That would be a separate, like, itemized, sheet. Am I correct on that, Mr. Tanzini?
It goes both ways. In this case, the cost for Phillipston for fiscal '20, agreed to by them, it's in your budget books, is $62,500. The base of costs that they pay is personnel, the fringe benefits of that personnel, retirement, workers' comp, the entirety of those fringe benefits, and the support costs. They then pay a formula based upon their percentage of calls. Please bear in mind that at our call volumes, you would most likely be expending the same number of dollars as you are expending. If you have, 90 people you're servicing, let's say at a convention or a catered event, you have generally the same basic number of personnel to service 100 people. So we would most likely have all of these expenses, except for we have an opportunity to recapture some of that on the operating side. On the capital side, because we service another community, we get classified, Chief, help me out with the classification, that
A regional emergency communication.
and we get an elevated amount of grant money because of that. So if you were not having this agreement, you would most likely have the same expense on the operating side with no revenue, and you would have reduced grant opportunities.
Does that make sense, Jeff?
It does, it just, like I said, my concern is that.
The dollar figure's not in
looks
here.
at it,
And-
and people go and look at it, there's no dollar figure there, and
They would need to go into the budget itself and look at the budget.
It's there, but
it-
again, you
most-
don't see that at town meeting.
Again, most,
In
Is this
an
going to the town
individual
meeting?
sense, and
Right.
then you don't see it in the document, so
right, because
that's-
well, the IMA's not gonna go to town meeting.
No, but I mean, if it's on the website, people look at, well, how much is it costing us? And they don't get to see it
It's
You know-
not, it's really not costing,
in a figure at town meeting. They just see, the police dispatch,
right.
lump sum.
And they don't see the 911 grant typically either, because I don't, did you put that in your budget, the 911? No, because we level fund, so we don't put grants in there, so you don't even see the grant money, which, what did we get last year? What was the figure for the 911 grant?
119.
119,000? So they don't even see that. So, I mean, so if there's a question like that, like as a resident, even though you are on the advisory committee, the chairman, it's in the budget book.
Right, I just look at this, so when people, if it's on the website.
It will be on the
they-
website.
They,
Well-
what's the cost, there's no dollars in here,
Right, and again, most IMAs won't have dollar, I've been doing this a couple years, so this is my first rodeo, but I've never seen too many IMAs with actually dollar figures in it. It's an agreement with another community, and that agreement is based on, what's in the agreement. As far as the dollar agreement and the facts of the calculation, it's in the management book as far as the budget book. But I understand your point.
Yeah, it could be there. Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. Thank you, Chief. Anything else to add? Did I answer your question? Great. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I see none. Doug?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. And maybe when we put this online, Mr. Tanzini?
We shouldn't put 'em out dollar.
Once it's online, they can actually do like a little asterisk to say, dollar amount
Sure.
is at budget book, blah, 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 page for me, please.
So we can put the actual amount and maybe try to explain a little bit easier
Right.
as to how the costs are calculated.
Right.
Sure.
That makes sense, and obviously we can,
Once we get that back with all signatures.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. Good question, Jeff. Let's see, let's talk about Mass General Law, Chapter 53, Section 18, Bravo, Voters Guide regarding override and related matters. Mr. Tanzini, you want to start?
Sure. So as I think most everyone knows, the needs of the Narragansett Regional School District that they've presented to us are such that we were not able to fund them and all of our other departments within our normal and ordinary new revenues that we expect to receive in the coming fiscal year. And so a scenario was set up in which the only way to feasibly do that is with a Proposition 2.5 override. I went through a quick scenario with the advisory committee the other night, for which Jeff stranded me at. But I think that, once folks had a chance to look at the numbers, it's almost a 21% reduction that you would have to make in the town's budget, the items
That's insane.
you can't cut after you have to take debt and regional retirement system out and such. So there will be this question on the ballot at the May 20th town election, absentee ballots available shortly, if not already, which asks the people to approve an additional $988,336 in real estate and personal property taxes for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019. Knowing that this was coming, the board adopted Mass General Law, Chapter 53, Section 18B, which allows the community to prepare under the direction of town council, and then disseminate a voter's information guide with respect to this question. That will be similar to the voter's guide that the Secretary of State's office, not quite as fancy, puts out before each annual state election whenever there are ballot questions. That starts with town council requesting written arguments in favor of or in opposition to the ballot question. And that notice was published last week. Any person wishing to submit a comment or comments has until the close of business tomorrow, April 25th.
Have we received any?
I don't know.
Okay.
I-
Are they
I
going
don't
directly to the town council?
They go to the town clerk.
Okay.
She then has to keep all of them on file, and she transmits all of them to town council.
Excellent.
He then prepares no more than 150 words for and against, and a very short explanation of his own as to the impact if one votes for it or the impact if one votes against it.
I understand.
This must then be delivered to this body. You do not get to rewrite it, you do not get to amend it, you don't get to edit it.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. And then it must be delivered to every household with a registered voter. We have sent an amended request to the advisory committee for the funding on this, which I hope will be part of their meeting next week. Now, that's the process that we've been
It's not on
going
the
through.
agenda yet, though.
We are starting to get some questions as to what happens if this doesn't pass. That's why we've given you this fairly detailed step by step. And I think, Holly, if you'll remind me in the morning, I'll get this off to the advisory committee as well. I'm not seeing them labeled for copies, but certainly we want to get that done.
Right.
I did meet at some length with Superintendent Cassavant and Mr. Flynn, the administrator in Phillipston. They also would be facing an override to fund their assessment. They are not able to fund it within their normal and ordinary new revenues, or within even the space that was in their tax cap. They did have some capacity as of last year. So a couple of things came out of that meeting. And Doug, if I could get you to just pass these down. The takeaways coming out of that meeting were essentially these. The first is that we must get to a budget by July 1. I say July 1, July 5, July 6 works. If we do not get to a budget by July 1, as Jeff's pointed out previously, you go to a 1/12 budget. Now, it's not quite that simple. You don't just take the current budget and divide it by 12, because the commissioner has the ability to determine you need more than 1/12 of last year based upon circumstances in the district, opening the new building, increases in health insurance. Those are the kinds of new circumstances that he can take into account. Nonetheless, it was our considered opinion that the communities should do everything we can to get to a budget by July 1. We came to believe, and I've always believed, that a deal one can control is generally better than rolling the dice and not having any control over your own future. So the superintendent will be working with the school district such that if the overrides in the two towns fail on May 20, the school district is prepared, as required by statute, to consider and certify a secondary budget submission as quickly as possible, such that a special town meeting might be held on or about June 15. To hold a special town meeting in this community is a 45-day process. We want to keep that tight. That's why we've already notified you that on your agenda of May 8th, we'll be asking you to open a warrant in anticipation of a possible special town meeting. You have a requirement in your bylaws that the warrant be open for at least 14 days. So we want to get a jump on that so that we don't have to wait to see what happens on the 21st and then start the clock.
Okay.
So we've laid out a number of scenarios that would allow us to get to a budget. July 1, as I say, July 5, 6, somewhere in there. Assuming all of this plays through with the school district, which is meeting on the other side of town as we're having this discussion here. With respect to the budget, the current funding number sought by the school district, should the override fail to pass and such a number were recertified, would mean a reduction in the town budget of slightly more than 20% across the board. Now, it doesn't really work that way. You can't take 20% of Luann or her software. You got to have 100% of that person and that software. The district, I think, recognizes the horrific impact this would have on the other town departments. And the superintendent has spent many hours trying to sort through what it would mean to our schools if the district budget had to be reduced in order to avoid doing that kind of harm to our total organization. The superintendent did start from the need to open the new school, both for reasons of providing the best education program possible to the children and to fulfill the promise to the community of these past 15 years for this new building. I don't think anyone wants to not see it open. Were the school district to certify such a reduced budget that we all might be able to live within, the picture is 19 positions would be lost at the district.
So 19 teachers.
He
Or
said
that-
positions, I don't know which.
Which staff?
19 staff positions, yes,
Okay.
would be lost. And it came to be his belief, and frankly, mine and Mr. Flynn's, that if we are gonna have to reduce the budget, should the override not pass, it should be done sooner and more swiftly, and not later.
So we're not gonna wait till December 1. He's gonna start doing his recalculations come,
Today,
I got you.
tomorrow,
So he's gonna figure out which staff members
So-
need, I got you.
soon. Because remember, if you start spending on money on July 1, and you're spending, and you burn cash at the 1/12th rate or whatever, and then you have to make an adjustment in December or January, you have that many fewer months in which to make up the difference. So we all came to believe that it was important to get this done sooner rather than later, and to remove the uncertainty from the employees in his organization. Any folks who might, whether they're on the Phillipston side, the Templeton side, the school side of the house, who would feel that they needed to look for other employment to protect themselves economically.
So did they already factor in, unemployment and all of that as well? As 19 staff members is.
It does. The 19 staff members do not yield as great a savings as some might think, because the district made a decision. We're on a assessment basis.
Mhm.
We take our payroll, we take a percentage of the payroll, we pay our unemployment. They're on a pay-as-you-go, which, when you don't have layoffs, makes a lot of sense. But when you do have them, you have to pay for them right away.
Gotcha.
So the cost of benefits would not be an immediate savings, they'd be a year 2 savings, but they won't be a year 1 savings, because they basically carry the unemployment. So the superintendent thought that should the override not pass, the loss of the 19 positions, the need to most likely collect virtually all pre-K through grade 5 of both communities into the new elementary school, which has other ramifications of its own. And if that all worked together, he would still be short approximately $235,000. That's a
Combined?
combined, that's an assessment to us of $195,000, and an assessment to Phillipston of roughly $40,000. So, again, depending upon what happens on the other side of the town as that board is meeting, we have a timetable that would get us to a budget on or around July 1. There is a potential budget, while devastating, in my view, with many negative side effects, might be achievable in the short term. It's not great for the long term. So we have a path forward. Now, whether the override passes or not, we do want to, as we've said over the past 4 or 5 months, when town meeting is over, we can't just wipe the sweat off our brow and say, oh, good, that's done, because it's not. Because this is an issue that is facing smaller, more rural school districts all across this Commonwealth. And we have got to become, in my view, much more aggressive in going after the legislation, looking at the district agreement, talking about innovative sharing, and the like. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but you'll see in the last paragraph that I'm asking for your support to convey to the regional school district our mutual desire to come to a budget prior to July 1 in such a manner as is laid out in the memo, and your understanding that upon completing this process, by that I mean town meeting and getting to a budget, but work must begin in earnest to secure a more financially stable future for the district and its partner communities. It's a plan.
Yes, it is a
I
plan.
didn't say it's a great plan.
It's a way.
It's a way.
Everybody has a way.
It's a way forward.
But like you said, I mean, this is just, for this year potentially. But then looking at next year, and then the year after that, and, I mean, obviously, it just,
Well, it's the discussion we have about the community writ large. It's,
Yes.
we'll have the, we've got some exciting economic development opportunities on the burner that we'll be holding. Lori and Adam will be holding the first public meeting in early June, I think June 4, here in this room, if I remember correctly. Economic development's the key. In the meantime, we need to continue to do the best we can, both from the management and the financial management side.
okay, obviously, we were approached last meeting by a citizen asking us the process of the budget as far as the 1/12 budget, how that works, how's it work if the override passes, what happens if the override doesn't pass. I hope that explains it in a nutshell. Obviously, if the override passes, which obviously, I support, I have children here, and they obviously need an establishment to go that's competitive with everybody else from 495 Belton towards Boston. I think this is a great start for them to start competing educationally. But again, if it doesn't pass, then obviously the whole, they have to recertify their number, the school does. If the school doesn't recertify the number, which they will, and hopefully it'll be a lower number, which will be great, but it's still gonna impact the community by at least 90,000?
The superintendent couldn't see his way past it being at least $195,000 on our side of the house.
On top of the 2.5% that we've already increased it to the 6, okay. So, so then we either come up with a deal at that point, and then we can recertify, and everything's great. If not, then they go to the 1/12 budget. The school has the right to have their own town meetings. The school committee can have their own meetings. They have to follow the same mass general law as everybody else, same as us. They have to advertise it, they have to invite the folks, they have to talk about it. And they have to come up again with a new number potentially. They can have as many town meetings as they want, up until 1 December.
Up until 1 December, at which point the commissioner sets the budget. Now, that's one side of it, because the commissioner then also gains a substantial amount of financial control over the district.
That's right.
Which continues on until such time, until June 30th that fiscal year, unless,
An agreement's
should
made.
God forbid you not agree a budget.
Right.
That then continues on until such time as there is a budget in place. And I think everybody, at least in the conversations I've been having, I think, board members have been having with school committee members, no one wants that to
No.
happen. Everyone at the district, in Templeton and in Phillipston, want to make sure that it's the communities that are making the decisions.
That's right. And obviously, I would, Luann's here, so I take it personally because obviously I live here in this community as well, and I love it here. And I don't want to raise my taxes either. But unfortunately, we're in a situation where, we don't have much of a choice, unfortunately, based on the need of the school. I did look at Kazavac's budget. I did look at the doctor's budget. I did review every piece of paper he had. 19 staff members is a lot of people to lose in a regional school district. I don't care if they're teachers or if they're, environmental engineers, whatever job that they do in the school, it's important. It's important to our kids. It's important to the community. And, I mean, I can't say enough that there's no, I mean, that's a lot of people. And then on the backside of that, I mean, even for the town to come up with another $190,000, it's, I mean, obviously, there's some moving around of some pieces need to be done. I mean, is it feasible? Yes. Could it be done? Yeah, I mean, if we can come to a agreement, but again, that's
Not
a
without any
Band-Aid.
Public safety.
I mean, that would be a Band-Aid till next year. Right, Jeff? Tell me if I'm wrong. So a Band-Aid till next year, so then next year, you're gonna run into the same problem, and potentially another override will need to take place in order to maintain the school that's already been opened, because, you know, of the agreement that we had, and the loss of 19 staff members at the regional school district. So, we're opening a brand-new building and potentially on a 112 budget, or a budget with losing 19 staff members. I don't know. I applaud everybody's efforts. I applaud the school, the district, our partners. I applaud you, Mr. Tenzini, and all the staff that work in the community to come up with plans and financial ways to navigate through the advisory committee with your help. I mean, I can't give you guys enough kudos, because even though you're kind of the one on my side sometimes, I mean, you do come up with awesome ideas, and I think it's beneficial to the community that they understand that it's not just this board. We're listening to all the smart people out there to help us make the decisions that are needed to move this town progressively forward, economic development-wise, educationally, financially, economically, you know, keeping money where it needs to be placed. And unfortunately, our hands are getting tied, and based on the amount of, you know, students that we have, the amount of teachers that we need. I'm sure we didn't even bring up the class sizes are probably gonna, you know, go up as well. So instead of the 18, 19 that they currently have, we'll probably go to the 26, 28 mark, I'm assuming. And I hate to assume.
That's a huge assumption.
I hate to assume, but
That's
I
a
mean.
huge assumption.
But, I mean, what else can they do with 19 staff members being lost? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what he's gonna do, meaning Dr. Kazavet's gonna do, but, I mean, I'm sure class sizes are definitely gonna be affected. I mean, am I
Well,
correct on that?
I'm sure he'll flesh this out over the next few weeks. The important thing, from my perspective, and again, we have your counterparts meeting on the other side of town, and I'm hoping that the stars of the conversation are at least lining up. The important thing, from my point of view, was that we at least try to have some common agreement on the pace at which we would try to move forward with.
Yes.
And assuming there's agreement in all corners, we now have that. And we have a path to get forward to a budget on or about July 1, which takes away, hopefully, the possibility of falling under any form of state oversight, supervision, control, however you want to refer to it. And we have the outlines of what the alternative might be. Neither is great. Having to request that override was not something I think this board enjoyed. The thought of having to try to trim the town's budget to back into, you know, something and then 195,000 is not something would look forward to either. But I think it's a much better position than just sort of limping along till October, November, December, and then in May, you know, sort of trying to figure out what the heck happened.
Well, I definitely
We have
wanna
other
know.
partners that have yet to weigh in. I think they are gonna weigh in. This statement was forwarded at 5:08 this morning to Dr. Caspian and to Mr. Flynn. We have reached out. We've spoken with the newspaper to say this isn't a Templeton story. It's not a Phillipston story. It's a regional story, and we're only one of the regional districts.
Right.
They're having the same problem whether it's Adams, Cheshire, or Southern Berkshire, Quabog,
Quabbin.
unless you're Concord Carlisle or you're one of the others, all smaller districts such as ours are dealing with the exact same issues.
And you also mentioned that obviously pre-K through 5 will all go to the Templeton School potentially under this program?
That's what it appears it would take to get through this year, yes, if the override
Doesn't.
should not pass.
Do you know what that means? That means Phillipston School's gonna close.
No, sir. No, I wouldn't want to use that expression at all. It must remain open. The superintendent has a plan for it. It
Mhm.
would, I would
How,
caution against using that phrase.
okay, so what happens, all pre-K through 5 are gonna go to Templeton Center? Is that what you said?
That is a strong likelihood, yes.
Okay.
And then there would be a year 2 transition plan. To have the budget, should it not pass on June 15, it is simply not possible to wait until 15, July 1 or the like, to see if there's a budget, and then try to arrange where everybody's going, where all the school routes are, where all the teachers are headed.
I understand.
So that motivates all of us to try to get to a bottom line backstop number and to move as aggressively as possible to get through the process. Should the override not pass.
Great. Well, I apologize for using that statement. I don't want to offend anybody, and especially anybody in Phillipston. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page and how this is gonna not just only impact Templeton, it actually impacts the entire region, which happens to be Phillipston as well. And as you said, they're going through potential override situation as well.
They need an override to fund at least some portion of their extra. They had some excess capacity, but they did not have enough excess capacity to fund it without having to resort to some override. And I believe that tonight they may be talking about that final number. I know they were trying to get their number down as well.
Okay. Great. Does anybody have any questions? Doug?
I don't know. I mean, hopefully everyone will support the override and allow everybody to move forward.
Right. Julie?
I agree with Doug. However, I think the voters in both towns need to be aware of the challenges that are gonna occur and the departments that may or may not be shut down or very strongly affected if this does not pass at the polls. And that's the reality. People came out in huge numbers to push a school vote through, push it up on the list at a town meeting, push it through, then go to the polls and approve it. We built it. Now we need to put people in it. That includes our children. If we can't do that successfully without really hurting our budgets in either town, I think. So, yeah, we need to see the voters out on May 20th. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's gonna hurt really hard if we don't see them out there supporting it, I think, unfortunately. We're gonna have to figure out how to pay for the school that all of those voters wanted. And that budget.
Yep.
I mean, it's reality.
Yes.
If I might, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And for those folks who might not support the override, I would ask them over the coming days and weeks to reach out to Representative Whips, Senator Goby. The state budget is currently being debated. The state budget, as in its current form, has $35,000 less in the payment of lieu of taxes program than it had last year. It has never achieved the funding for regional transportation that we were all promised. Give up your local control over your local districts
And we
in
promise,
the manner in which you've known them. And we promise you, magical asterisk, subject to appropriation, to pay for the costs of transportation. So for those who perhaps understand the challenge, but just can't bring themselves to support the override, I would ask that they, have some consideration to becoming part of a lobbying arm to help get that extra $35,000, $75,000, $125,000 into the state budget that would flow to Templeton should a number of these amendments to the budget now pending get approved.
Transportation last year was what, they paid 62%?
I don't remember the exact number, but it's never broken north of low 70s, I think, around, now, depending upon which way you look at the number, it's anywhere between a $350,000 to an $800,000 shortfall, whether you read the legislation to include non-regular transportation, the sped transportation and like. If the state funded all the transportation, $800,000, that's almost the entire gap in what the school district needs. So, emails, cards, telephone calls, please, folks, assist us, consider assisting in any way that you can.
Great. Thanks, Carter. You have anything else?
no, that's it.
Jeff, do you have anything? Great. Any old business? We don't have none. Board and staff member comments and reports. Do we have any?
I have some comments I'd like to make tonight.
Sure.
So, since I'm gonna be out of town the next 2 weeks, this is likely my last regular selectmen's meeting. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the great people of Templeton for allowing me to serve for the past 6 years. I'm sure not everybody agreed with every action that I took, but I based my decisions on the information that I had at hand and what I thought was best for the community as a whole. While as a single selectman, I didn't accomplish anything on my own, but collectively, my fellow board members, the staff, and myself have made many positive changes towards our stability, financial practices, and professionalism. I'd like to welcome the new board, the new incoming board members, and urge them to not dwell on the past, but look to the future and continue to build on the positive momentum that's already been achieved. The road to success is not a solo sprint. It's a marathon run by a team. So Templeton is not just a town, it's a community. And working together, Templeton has a bright future. So thank you, everyone.
Good job. Any other board staff member comments? Yes, Mr. Tenzini.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, with, in the run-up to town meeting, we do have this election on May 20. Absentee ballots are available now or in the next few days.
Write-ins are welcome. Oh, I'm sorry.
I will be attending the advisory committee's May 2nd pre-town meeting, 6:30, here in this room. I would encourage folks with questions to attend that or email them in, not to flood your inbox, Jeff, but advisory committee at Templeton. Is it just advisory at Templeton?
Advisory committee, templetonmass.gov.
Advisory committee at Templeton ma.gov, so that they can get your insights, your comments, your questions. We've also added a meeting with town council on May 7, 6:30 PM here in this room to discuss the codification and any legal questions. Much of the warrant this time around, I would say a third to 40% is all bylaw changes and legal issues, more so than money issues. So we'll have that opportunity as well. And on the town's website, you can click on town meetings. It speaks to all the documents that are coming up. The full 400-pound book that's been referred to as the toe breaker, the signed warrants, the signed election, a lot of these memos. And so folks, I would encourage folks to peruse all those documents and get any questions to the board, to myself, to the advisory committee, because the more information we can get out, the more questions we can answer ahead of time. I think the better the meeting will go and the better the debate will be.
Excellent. Anything else? Excellent. Do we need to go into executive session, Mr. Tenzini?
I have nothing for you this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Fantastic. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Julie?
Yes.
Excuse me, any discussion? I see none. Or adjournment, yeah. Any discussion? No, I see none. Doug?
Yes.
Thanks, Julie.
Yes.
And I vote yes, so thank you for joining.
Confused me. I didn't know what
I
to say.
was confused for a second, too.